Hi everyone, and welcome back to SwitchUp and to our favourite series at the moment, where we don't go back, we play a few games and then we have a chat about them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's as simple as that, really, isn't it? We just decide on a few games we want to talk about. They could be new games or old, of course, and just have a little chat about what we thought of them in general, really.
As always, we've got our 10% discount that goes on till the end of this month. We've managed to extend that thanks to you guys actually using it. Use code SwitchUp over at switchup.gg to save 10%. So what are the interesting games we've been playing? Well, let's find out.
Right, my first game then, Mark, if you don't mind, I'll start. And my first is called Toodee and Topdee, which is quite a strange name. It sounds a bit like a kid's TV show, to be fair, doesn't it? But it's quite an interesting game, this one. Do you know anything about this one at all?
Only what I've looked at in the last 5 minutes.
Okay, so it's basically a puzzle game, I guess, like a single screen puzzle game. But the interesting mechanic is that you play as two characters, being Toodee and Topdee, of course. And the way that it works is that Toodee works on a 2D plane, and Topdee works from almost like an isometric perspective, and you can switch between the two at any time and it will change the perspective of the level.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm trying to work out, is this a single player or could you do this all on your own?
It's, I believe it's single player. I could be wrong there. If I am, I'll flash something up. But I've only played it in single player. I'll say that much at least. I suppose the reason I think it probably is only single player is because you can only control one character at a time. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, I've just looked. It's 1 or 2 players.
Oh, it is 2. There we go.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So that'd be interesting to see how that plays actually in 2 player. So just to kind of give you an idea of what I mean, let's say you always start, as far as I can remember, as 2D, so the one that's playing as more like a traditional 2D platformer, you know?
Yeah.
And it may be that you need to get to the goal, of course, in each level, and it may be you need to traverse some spikes that are in the way, and all there is in the level is one box. So what you'd have to do is jump and then change to Topdee, which would freeze 2D in the air, put the box underneath them, allow them to land, jump again, freeze, move the box, etc. I mean, it gets more difficult than that, but just to give you some sort of idea, you know?
Yeah, and I wonder how that would work with co-op. Sorry, I've kind of got it stuck in my head now. How is that going to work if it freezes one of you?
Well, I think you'd have to have some serious communication going on, because you'd have to say, look, I'm going to jump now, pause, right, your turn. Do you know what I mean?
We'd be screwed, mate.
Yeah, it'd be quite an interesting one to play actually in co-op. Now you've said that it is 2 player.
We'd have to give it a bash.
I would be interested to see how that works. But it's actually a very good little game. It's one of those like devious little platformers, you know, that it looks obscenely simple and almost I don't know, you feel you get bored quite quick, but it just does enough to throw bits at you to keep you invested as you go along. So the first world is all about navigating hazards, whereas the second world, for example, starts to throw in enemies to try and avoid as well. And again, you can be quite clever in switching between the characters quick enough that you can capture them within parts of the environment and stuff like that.
Okay, it's quite expensive. It's like 18 quid.
Yeah, that is too much. Just from the point of view of how long it is, I think I'm already about halfway through the game. Yeah, I bought it on sale. It's one of those that went down dirt cheap, you know. But definitely a sale game for sure. And it has bosses in there. It has boss battles, which are quite interesting. Again, generally how they work is 2D would have to collect X amount of something to then allow for a moment where you can position Topdee in that isometric view to put something in place that will then fall on the boss and damage them.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good little game. It's a shame to hear that price actually, because that is, you know, I'm kind of singing its praises, and as soon as you said that, it's like, no, there's the floor. That's too expensive, you know. But yeah, a good game though.
Nice. All right, cool. Well, yeah, I guess if you find it on a sale, then that's one kind of to wish list, isn't it?
I would say so, yeah.
All right. Okay, you're going to enjoy this. You're really going to enjoy this, actually.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you some clues about the game that I've been playing, or games.
Cool.
I'll tell you the year.
Yeah.
1990.
1990.
Yeah, what game I've been... That's your only clue so far. Any guesses?
Super Mario World.
No. It was originally developed for the Commodore 64.
Oh, okay. Is it Saboteur?
No. And it was ported to other systems. There's 5, I think 3 of the games. One of them has like what's it called? A director's cut.
Bubble.
No. Oh, this is great. No. More clues. So like a run and gun, but you can go in both directions. You can kind of go wherever you want. And it's one of your favourite games. In fact, you've spoken about this game so much.
It's not Midnight Resistance, is it?
No.
Turrican. Yeah. Oh, bloody hell. Oh, okay. Yeah. Which one have you been playing? Because there's 2, aren't there?
It was. Mate, I've been playing the Turrican collection.
Yeah.
Basically, there's a few. So I played the 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. So you've got Turrican 1 and then you've got Turrican 2, the final fight. But then there's Super Turrican, which was on the SNES, which is also on this pack. And there's Super Turrican 2, but there's Super Turrican, the director's cut, which is the one that I've really been enjoying.
Yeah, there's 2 of these collections on the Switch.
Yes.
Each obviously with different games from the Turrican series in them. And it's interesting. I mean, you did mention the Commodore one, because I played the Commodore 64 game briefly back in the day. I never had an Amiga, and the Amiga is where the Turrican series is kind of better known, or at least associated with. Yeah. But the one I played the most actually was Super Turrican, the one you just mentioned. So all the while you were talking, my brain didn't go to Turrican, but now you've said it, yeah, of course. So you've been playing the director's cut of Super. Yeah, I've been really enjoying it. Like, it's funny because I remember you saying, because I like obviously games like Dark Souls, I like things that are really difficult, and you'd very often say things like, you wait till you try some of the old school classics. Yeah. And man, but I don't know if this, I'm guessing this is a new feature they've added, but you can rewind time. Yeah, so they've added that for these versions. Turrican is fantastic games first and foremost, but incredibly hard. What's quite interesting about them, again, you mentioned they were run and guns, and you're absolutely right. But and you did say, to be fair, you can go in either direction, and what you mean by that is they're incredibly non-linear, aren't they? You can pretty much go anywhere you want.
Yes.
Which was quite unique, really, at that time. I can't think of another one that did it. Generally, it was left to right, or But yeah, they are these like kind of big open worlds, and there's huge amounts of collectibles and extra lives and things that you can find just by kind of shooting at the air and stuff. And Turrican is a fantastic series, definitely.
I've been really impressed with it, honestly. I think one of the things as well that stuck out is the music. The music's awesome.
Yeah, the music was done by a man called Chris Holzbeck. It's absolutely stunning music. You're absolutely right. Really top drawer. Mm-hmm. It's that synth music from back in that era. Just fantastic.
Yeah.
That the Commodore could make it could do some, it could do some things when it came to music. It was surprisingly deceptive in terms of what it could produce. And some of the chip music on there, oh man, it's just amazing what they could produce.
Yeah, the soundtracks on all of these games are just awesome. Like, my kids were dancing around the room.
Yeah, exactly that. Like I said, I've played the most of Super over the years. Mm-hmm. And I recently, because there was another Turrican collection a few months ago, 6 months ago maybe, I forget when.
Yeah.
And I played Mega Turrican on that for the first time. I'd never played Mega Turrican. And that's quite different again. That's a little more linear, which is quite interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the non-linearity of the ones I've been playing.
Yeah.
And I like that it's not just mindless. You really got to think your moves out, which I was quite surprised by. And there's some decent little like mini bosses pop up and stuff. Like, it's funny, isn't it? Because a lot of the mechanics that make these modern classics is actually, they're just taken from these older games.
Yeah, absolutely. And as much as, people aren't wrong when they say things like you mentioned earlier about Dark Souls, the whole Souls-like genre, if you want to call it that, and you play, you want difficult, play Dark Souls. It's not wrong. Don't get me wrong, but there's a whole wealth of games before Dark Souls was a twinkle in anyone's eye that was, they were just as hard, if not harder, in some respects, and they're great games, like absolute classics.
There you go. I bet everyone, when I was giving you the clues, were like screaming, weren't they? So that's my second choice. My first choice. What about your second?
My second one is a very well-known one, big Nintendo game, and that's Luigi's Mansion 3.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously this has been out for, quite a while now, and I actually bought this ages ago. I bought it for the wife. I bought her a Switch for Christmas one year, and she wanted this game, and she played it through to completion, and I'd never played it. And we'd been playing it recently in co-op. This is a game that does have co-op in it, which I was quite pleasantly surprised, to find out about actually. Because I'd played obviously the first two Luigi's Mansion games. The first one was on the GameCube, and the second one on the 3DS. Very good games, quite different. Certainly, when the first one came out, because it was the first, Mario in inverted commas game on the GameCube, and it didn't have Mario in it, so it was quite a bold choice for Nintendo to make. And I don't think at the time it didn't get the recognition it deserved for those reasons. People wanted a Mario game, a Mario 3D platformer.
Yeah.
But in time, it's certainly garnered itself, a reputation, a fan base. And this third game again is very, very good. Have you played any of the games at all?
I feel like I've played this one. It has a co-op mode. Was there a demo?
I was just going to say, yeah, as I asked you, sorry, I almost answered your own question. We played it together at one of the events, didn't we, a while ago?
Yes.
That's right. But yeah, the co-op mode, because I was, you have Luigi, of course, and then you have this character called Gooigi, who's as you would expect, made out of goo or slime. And I kind of expected it to be that every so often there'd be a part that pops up where you can play as him. But it's not the case. You can just play in co-op the whole time. There are occasions where Gooigi will take over and it's just for them to play, but it doesn't restrict you in not being able to play in co-op for the rest of the time, which is, I think, a really wise choice, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those games where it's better than the reception it's received. Is that fair? Like, I saw a lot of comments of people just like Luigi's Mansion. I don't know what video it was on. Or did it get really well praised and then no one bought it, or is it just like not really spoken about?
In terms of like a Metacritic reception, I don't know, I'll be honest. In terms of general public and people fans you would speak to, as far as I know, it's been very well received.
Okay.
I think maybe you might get some like maybe doesn't take as many risks as it could do by part 3 of a series, that sort of thing. But on the whole, and so it doesn't click with some people, which is fair enough because it is quite a different game. The controls can feel a little awkward because it's kind of that top-down perspective, and it is a little bit awkward. When you capture the ghosts, you have to almost turn away from them to weaken them before you could then capture them.
Okay.
So I could see it not clicking with some people, but I think generally fans of the series were pretty happy with what they got.
Yeah.
And it is a nice game to play with someone else because it's relatively slow paced. You could play it as a co-op experience, of course, or you could have one person play and the other person hop in when the other person is struggling, if it's a less experienced gamer that's playing with you. It's a very Nintendo sort of game.
Yeah.
It's got lovely visuals, highly polished, slightly quirky. It's just got that vibe to it. It's very much a Nintendo game,
Yeah. No, I think it's got 86 on the old Metacritic. It looks good. I don't know. I just heard a few things of people weren't overly enthused, but maybe it is one for the fans rather than, or maybe it's just you need to play it. You need to try it. Yeah,
it could well be that, to be honest, because it wasn't one that I was kind of champing at the bit to play as much as I enjoyed the other two.
Yeah.
But it was in the house and seemed like a good one to play together. But yeah, no, I'm very happy to have finally picked it up for sure. Nice.
I'm trying to work out what chomping at the bit came from. What on earth does that even mean?
I don't know, it's probably best not to ask.
No, it's probably filthy. Anyway, moving on to my second one. We're a second, aren't we?
Yep, second one, I think.
Second one, I will go with Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Oh, okay, yep.
Which is, Monolith Soft's latest outing on the Nintendo Switch.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm sure you already know, it is absolutely incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Like it's probably. I'll tell you for why. I'm not just going to say it's amazing, and JRPGs, especially when you've got family and stuff like that, they're not as enjoyable as they once were because you just want to move through them. There's so much filler in JRPGs so often that you're just wanting to push forward and get it done. They've managed almost, not completely, but they've almost managed to make all of the more usually mundane things, really enjoyable.
Okay.
But also optional. There was an early point where like there's a huge open space, and as you always have to do, you got to move from one point to the other. And it was like, let's not fight anything. And I was like, what? I'm like looking at the characters talking, and they're like, yeah, let's just avoid all the combat. I'm like, yes, come on. and because they'd said that, I then went and fought a load of stuff. Because usually you have to do that combat, you know? So the fact that it kind of suggested you don't have to, it changed that. Plus, it's so easy to avoid combat just running around the outside, and you can pull individual enemies as well, which is a nice little touch from MMOs. So yeah, as far as combat goes, they've really got it dialed. You can switch between all of the playable characters as well, so you can switch between anyone. And then little things like, and I'm very careful not to spoil because, you know, there'll be people wanting to play it. But little things like being able to choose classes. So if you're a swordsman, you can just switch to any of the other classes in the game. Like, I think it's great. And you keep some of the abilities you got from the other one. Like, I can't really think of a better combat system. My favourite was always, I know you haven't really put much time into it, but Final Fantasy VII had a materia that you equipped, and I just thought it was so simplistic, it just works so well. The system here is better, like it's worlds better. You get this ability where two of you kind of merge together to form like, it's basically Power Rangers. Like, you know, you become like this big thing. And then there's another pool of XP for those as well. So yeah, and the world, the story, like, it's just great. The only bit so far that hasn't been pleasant is the fact that I've experienced a crash in the worst possible time. Like, there was an 1.5 hour battle, and then it crashed straight after.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, come on.
Did you lose your progress?
I lost it all. It exited the cave at the start of the battle. I was like, no.
Oh my word, yeah, that's awful. That's not good at all.
No, it lost some brownie points with me there, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I don't blame you. That's pretty shocking. But yeah, I mean, my experience with Xenoblade is that I've played and completed the first one. I've played, what was it called? Was it called X? Xenoblade X on the Wii U.
Yeah.
Which isn't on the Switch. I played a little bit of 2, and I do own. It was kind of an expansion, but it was almost so big that it was like its own game. Was it called Torna, the Golden Country, or something like that? Yeah, you know the one I mean. I own that, but I've not played it. So I'm not gonna play 3 yet, because I've got too much to play first to kind of put me in a position to play it. You know? Yeah,
I mean, I had to just start. I've done Xenoblade Chronicles, the first one. I've done like 80% off. The second one, I've done maybe 50% off.
Yeah.
And then I just was like, no, sod it. I'm starting.
Yeah.
And you can enjoy it. You know, there's some lore that you will be missing out on, I'm sure, and I'll go back and finish. But it's so damn good. It really is. In terms of storytelling, I'm thinking of comparisons as well to things like, and this isn't a comparison in terms of similarities, it's more differences. You look at like what's classed as the best JRPG on Switch so far, it would probably be fair to say that's Dragon Quest XI's, right?
Yeah, that's a good shout. Yeah, I would say so.
But when I compare those two side by side, 11S, the music is no way near as good as Xenoblade 3. Like, I know that, you know, the composer was a bit of an egotist, like he wanted it his way or the highway.
Right.
But the musical, you know, the beats weren't quite there at times. There'd be like sad stuff on screen, and there'd be this like fanfare going off.
Right, okay.
But with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, it's so on point. Every area you shift to, every mood, it just changes, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I mean, like I say again, I'm mostly talking about the first game, having not played the third, of course. But I mean, even in that game, you had that epic scale. Music, as you said, was fantastic. Voice acting was a bit wonky, but you grew to love it, you know. I think it's become quite iconic because of the voice acting. And it's funny you mentioned the combat system, because in that first game, as I said, I completed it, and but I remember being, whatever it was, you know, 20, 30, 40 hours in, and still not fully understanding the combat system. You know what I mean? And like kind of making do and doing my best with it, rather than by that point feeling like I'd grown with the hero on this journey and now had perfected it, you know?
I 100% know, because I actually had to restart the second game for that very reason.
Yeah,
I played like
it's funny,
3 or 4
isn't it?
hours. Yeah, and it just didn't do a good enough job of ingraining knowledge in the player.
Yeah,
Whereas
I
the
agree.
third one absolutely nails that.
Nice. That's
Like,
nice
it's
to know.
so clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, man, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, incredible. In my top 3 games of all time, easily.
Nice. Wow. There we go. That's quite a statement.
It is.
Okay. How do I follow that up? My final game then. Well, it's nothing like that at all. But it's a fun little game that I've been playing called Kemono Heroes, which is a pixel-based platformer where your gameplay hook, the thing that gets you in there, is that you've got 4 characters to choose from, and each one controls pretty similarly for the most part, but also each one has like a unique trait that makes a playthrough with them feel slightly different. But what I enjoyed the most, it was nothing to do with that really. It was the movement and it's one of those like action-y platformers where you're doing a lot of fighting as you go, and your basic sword play reminded me very much of Strider in the arcade and on the Mega Drive, where it's very well known as well. And it also had like a grappling hook mechanic, which reminded me of is it called Bionic Commando? I think it's a Capcom. Yeah. You know the one, yeah. So it's just interesting. It had those kind of 2 quite classic elements to it, classic arcade elements put into this one game. And it's one of those games where it does a lot of things well, and there are a lot of choices that I don't understand. And it's not that it doesn't make it a bad game. It just leaves you scratching your head why they couldn't see some of these things, that if you'd have just tweaked it could have been an even better game, you know?
Yeah, like what?
Well, for example, I mentioned the 4 characters a moment ago, and as I said, they all have a trait that makes them slightly unique. They're still quite similar, but you can't switch between them on the fly or at the end of a stage. You have to start a brand new playthrough with another character, which just seems such an odd choice, you know?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it here. So I can see you can do 4-player co-op, can't you? Is that right?
You can. Yes, you can. This is another game that you can play in co-op, which leads me to one of my other points in a moment, actually. But yeah, I've been playing it in single player, and I did read a bit about online just to see what the general consensus was. Yeah. And most people said that it's one of those games where it's fun in multiplayer and not really worth playing in single. I mean, I wouldn't agree with that. I've been playing it on my own, and I've had enough fun to warrant my time. But one of the things it does do, as you move through the levels, you can't go back. Sometimes the screen locks behind you as you move through platform games. Yeah. Which is fine. That's not unheard of. But I can imagine playing that in co-op, where one person might be storming off ahead and you kind of get locked out or have to keep respawning, to be incredibly frustrating. So yeah, that is It's just that I don't know what they could have done to avoid it, especially in a pixel-based game. Could you have had the screen zoom out, or some games kind of carry you back in a bubble, but again, would that work in a pixel-based game? I don't know. So I don't know what the answer is, but I just feel that would get quite annoying having that style, Yeah,
it would. I mean, it does look quite fun though, from what I'm looking at here.
It is a decent game, and again, like, I know it just sounds like I'm knocking it. I'm really not. It's just little things you notice as you play sometimes. The character I played with, who is the fox,
Fudomaru.
Their trait is that you can capture, if you like, an enemy and become them for a moment. Possess them, kind of like in the Mario Odyssey game to an extent. But then you'll have enemies, like I captured this enemy who was basically like a big tree stump walking along, like with the worst movement, like slow lumbering, couldn't jump. And then you have like a ledge to get onto, and you can't jump to get on the bloody ledge. So I was like, well, this is rubbish. Changed back to myself and moved on, and never captured another creature again. It was like, what's the point?
I love it though. I love it, because that tree stump, right? He'd gone out every day, and he was looking over his shoulders like, one day someone's going to take. And then you did your thing and took it, and he was like, yes. And his moment to shine was just like hopping along as a sad little stump.
But then very quickly I realised that he was absolutely rubbish. And just moved on and never thought about him again, which is
made his
a bit
day.
sad. But just come on, like, level layout, make the enemies appropriate to what you're trying to get the player to do to make the mechanic fun. But whatever, it's a cheap. Well, I don't know if it's cheap actually. I bought it on sale. It might not be cheap.
12 quid, something like that.
I wouldn't pay that for it. Again, I bought it on sale. It's most certainly a sale game, but I just thought it was quite an interesting one to talk about because, like we review a lot of games and sometimes you can't get yourself out of that mindset of just picking faults sometimes. And this was one of those games that just seemed to lend itself quite easily to having its faults picked, if you like. And it was fun enough. I enjoyed my time with it. I'll probably finish it off and it'll be in a backlog episode at some point in the future, no doubt, I'm sure.
Good. I'm glad because that tree stump needs love.
He deserves it, doesn't he? He deserves that moment.
He really does. Right, okay, brilliant. On to my final game then. It is a game called Voyage.
Oh yeah, yep.
Which is kind of channeling its inner Alone in the Dark / what's that other game I like? Brother, A Tale of Something, Two Sons.
Yeah, I know the one you mean. Yeah.
And you said, what was the other one you likened it to?
Journey.
So it's got kind of that walking simulator style to it. But you can play solo or with a friend. And it has I guess it's carried by its art style, and it's the general atmosphere that's created here is just beautiful.
Yeah.
Like the animation's almost slowed down, so it's almost the animation's running at that like 20 frames per second movie style,
Right. Yeah.
Like a really well done, hand painted animated series. It looks lovely. And you travel from a cave out into the you go over what I'm classing as the River Styx, and then you end up in like this big sunny area, and then you're going through lush fields, and then you end up in space. Like, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, I remember seeing this one. I put it in one of the upcoming videos, and it is, as you say, I mean, the art style is certainly quite striking. I mean, I couldn't tell just from the trailer whether it was like a low poly style or whether it was pixel art. I couldn't quite tell, but either way it looked great. Yeah,
I don't even know if I can tell from having played it, honestly.
Yeah, like, it seems to kind of blur the two a little bit, doesn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, I'd say they're almost, it could be one of those games where they're using some like 3D lighting effects with the 2D, the 2D style. But you can. This is another one you can play with two of you in co-op, because if there's a high ledge, you have to give them like a boost and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. So there is some there's like a puzzle element to it to some extent, is there?
Yeah, definitely. There's two of you. The puzzling generally involves pushing blocks or climbing up to high places or pushing buttons and things like that. It's all very simplistic. But yeah, if you're solo, it's very easy to switch between the two. You can tell one of them to stay where they are and stuff. But if you've got a friend to play through it, it's only about 2.5 hours, which, to be honest, for me, for these types of games, is about right.
Yeah.
It's about a tenner. It's not. I guess that is quite expensive for a couple of hours.
I think it depends. I mean, it's, again, we've had this conversation before, Mark, haven't we? That some people base value solely on how many hours they're going to get out of a game, which is fair enough. There's no right answer to this, debate, if you want to call it that. But some people will attribute it to, how it feels the few hours that you spend with it. Some people will attribute it to production values. I suppose it's kind of a mix of all of them together, isn't it, really? Yeah, you're spot on. Do you know what? I'm going to put it out there. This is well worth it. It's well worth it. If you're someone that enjoys those experiential games, this is one that just will leave you feeling super chill. Is there any scope for replay value at all in terms of collectibles, or is it not really that sort of game? It's not really that sort. Because it's left, you look at Alone in the Dark, what kind of gave that its length was the fact that it was so bloody difficult. Yeah. It's kind of left that side. There aren't, it's non-violent. There's no enemies or anything like that. And on the one hand, that's really nice because you can fully chill. On the other hand, there's not much replayability there. You're doing the same thing. You're running from left to right. But having said that, you go back and watch your favourite movie every now and then, don't you? And it is very nice for those 2.5 hours. Exactly right. That's where those smaller games do almost keep their worth, if you want to call it that, in that you may well return to them for just an evening's playthrough, or a Sunday afternoon or whatever. Yeah, definitely. It's a lovely game, it really is. Yeah, good stuff. Right, there we go. So that's our our 6 picks for this episode. Do, as always, please do let us know of any games you've been playing recently. You don't have to have liked them, you know, you could just want to talk about them. That's all it is really, this series. It's just a nice change of pace to the usual.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, let us know in the comments. Do save yourself 10% if you do buy any of these games or just wishlist them. Use code SwitchUp over at switchup.gg. And thanks to all of you. I think we've had a couple of new Patreons. Yeah, and just things that seem to be going quite nicely. That's it really for all things Switch all the time. Keep it Switch up. Cheers guys. See ya!